Hello and welcome to The Growth Shift. I'm Jennifer, and today I'm joined by Mike Dixon, President and COO of Hoops HR. Mike, thanks so much for being with me today.
Hey, thank you, Jennifer. Thanks for having me.
My
Absolute
pleasure.
pleasure to be here.
My pleasure. Mike, could you tell us a little bit about your background and your company, and how did you originally get into recruiting and talent acquisitions?
Yeah, so I have a little bit of an unusual background. I came out of college, spent 12 years in the Army on active duty, and last gig in the Army was teaching in faculty at West Point. So ended up teaching a lot of leadership development, leadership integration, doing some recruiting, analyzing some recruiting analytics, and then transitioned from the Army, went to work for a really small boutique tech company by the name of IBM. And that launched me into that HR human capital space. Had a number of internal roles since then. As I got further into my career, kind of got bit by an entrepreneurial bug. And I had a good friend who had founded Hoops. And, eventually we came to this sort of decision, hey, why don't you come on over here and apply your skills in this recruiting and HR company. So yeah, that's how it happened.
Fantastic. Okay, so now that we know how your journey began, let's zoom out and look at kind of the bigger picture of what's happening across the industry right now. From your seeing the market, what are some of the biggest changes you're seeing in executive recruiting, HR?
So let's start with HR because that's going to lead us back to executive recruiting because
Okay.
they're very much mutually dependent on each other. So HR is undergoing a sea change. There was always the argument in HR that if you wanted a seat at the table, you needed to be strategic, more strategic. What we're seeing now is there's a lot of HR functions that will be heavily challenged or outright replaced by AI. A lot of legacy systems within the functions that are being minimum challenged, in some cases replaced by AI. I'm not objective in that because we're an AI based company. But what I will say is there's going to be a further separation of the minority of really outstanding HR leaders and everyone else. Because the early adopters of AI, the ones who are already somewhat strategic, the ones who can make a great financial and strategy based value argument, are going to probably take market share from other functions and really drive value for their organizations. Okay. And you may say, all right, well, how does that relate to executive search? Executive search is going to become much more critical because we're not going to be able to afford to have the failure rate we had during the zero interest rate environment. We're going to need, and premium leaders are going to cost more. There's going to be more talent available, so it's going to be harder to sort the signal from the noise. But great HR leaders are going to be able to go to their leadership before they go to market and say, according to our succession plan, looking at our critical roles, we need one of these kinds of leaders, and we think we know where to find her. And this is how much it's going to cost. And these are the assessments, the behavioral interview and technical questions we're going to put in place to ensure we make a good hire. So that's going to be on the internal side. On the external side, what we saw last year in the market, strategic analysis, looking at the publicly traded firms, if you were pure play recruiting, you got hurt. So a diversified firm that's able to offer consulting, technology, and recruiting together at a very competitive price point is going to do better because people are going to negotiate on value and they're going to negotiate on outcome. So we've seen prices come down in the industry where focusing was 35% of first year OTC to get an executive hire. Now we've seen kind of the going rate is 20% and it's even dipping below that. And if you're running an organization doing that solely based from a human standpoint, it's going to be very difficult to sustain your margins. It's also going to be very difficult to compete with companies that are using all sorts of AI search, rating, and job marketing tools. So that's going to shift the market. And you're going to see good strategic HR leaders figure out who those players are, bring them into their organization, and accelerate their wins for executive search and then onboarding and leadership development. So I think those two things go hand in hand. There's one other piece I will put out there that I think is really, really critical. We are in an absolute drought of quality leadership in a lot of roles in the market. We underinvested and society got away from a lot of the natural activities to develop leadership talent for years. Startup culture is not real big on spending on leadership training. We got away from the science-based stuff that works, that we know tells us can develop talent. Increasing self-awareness through quality personality assessments, quality executive coaching, excellent 360 feedback, putting all those things together and creating experiential pathways at companies. We really got away from that. We spent a lot of time and effort on technical training, which a lot of it doesn't matter anymore with AI. So that knowledge-based training, the big contracts with the Skillsofts and the LinkedIn Learning, good leaders know you can replace that with AI now. So, however, a leader that knows how to coach, develop, and motivate people without threatening them, by creating a positive work environment, by caring about their employees and helping to develop them for the larger organization, those people will be golden. And those are the kind of leaders we're going to need going forward, who are generalists who can adapt to the rapidly pacing change of technology.
Sure. Wow. You just packed in a lot right there.
Yeah.
Great, awesome insights. Okay, so I wanted to circle back, and you talked about like the AI and getting through the noise. How do you do that? Because it's all over the place. Like, how do you find those leaders?
Yeah. So at the very basics, we're encouraging our customers. Let's start with the human interaction, because anyone can do this now. If you are totally reliant on virtual interviews, AI is already in the picture, because I guarantee you somebody's got a chat window open and they've got the AI flavor of the day there to help them answer the questions.
Mm,
So one of the things we tell our clients is, if you want to get a real sense of somebody, create in-person opportunities with them.
yeah,
And the more you're doing that, and the more good recruiters are doing that in advance for you and building some talent pipelines, so when the time is ready, you have live human beings that you vetted to some extent, it's going to be critical, because you're
yeah,
not going to know what you're getting. There's going to be AI camouflage over all of it.
right. Do you feel like most people want to do a first intro interview with an AI robotic feel like screen, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah, they do. And there's nothing wrong with that. We do it. We highly recommend it. But at some point, particularly for critical hires that are leading people, you're going to need to see them in person. And we've gotten far away from that with the pandemic. And sometimes we have people that are working remote only roles. And the question is, as we're finding out, is, do you really know who you hired?
Mm,
It sounds a little outlandish. It sounds like it came from a spy novel, but we literally had cases where companies had North Koreans in their tech workforce.
okay,
So
yeah,
there's,
right.
but at a lower level, it's a question of, do you know that the engineer you hired for a role, can he or she really do the things you hired them to do? And can they make a real human connection with people, especially if you're going to want them in the office or with clients or with both?
Sure.
The second thing behind that question is, it's the AI arms race. So first, several years ago, we had large enterprise applicant tracking systems, and they had machine learning that could read the resumes for you, because it got easier for candidates to just upload resumes. Now candidates have AI, and they can generate 20 different resumes, and they can have different pictures and different LinkedIn and different social media. So you're going to have an AI driven system to help you on the front end, just to sort the volume of applicants you're going to get and help you move through them in a timely manner.
Yeah.
That's really going to be key with this. So it's going to be systems arms race. So making sure you have decent technology so you don't get overwhelmed, doing that in a legally defensible manner.
Hmm.
And then also combining that with a human interaction to make sure you know what you're getting.
Sure. Okay, so how is Hoops HR using AI to help you get through all of that?
Yeah. So the very first thing we do is we start out with our market information review. And we're running these market reports. We're helping folks write a job description using AI, but then we're going out and we're vetting it against open source data in the marketplace. within a matter of seconds and saying, okay, if you put these keywords in this job description, here's what it's going to do to the available talent in the market. So you want, XYZ certification. Great. Do you really need it? Because that may take out 25% of the available talent in the market. And we're also looking at that saying, hey, here's what the market is telling us is the likely compensation and benefits for this role. Here's all the competitors in a given geography that you're competing against for this role. Here are their job descriptions and what they're offering. And then here's the overall degree of difficulty. So before we even start, we are helping employers and leaders figure out, okay, what's my envelope? What am I going to go
Sure.
do here?
Okay.
So we've literally had clients that have said, you know what, I'm going to open an office in this city versus that one because there's more talent. Well, in this case, there was more accounting talent available at a better price point in one location than another. So that's
Sure.
important to know right from the start. Then going in with our platform, it's a very, very functional ATS that's included with the service. And we are using AI not to eliminate, but to rank the resumes and the applicants. And that's an
Okay.
important point because we're going to let you see everything, but we're going to suggest to you who's a 5 out of 5 star candidate and who's a 4 out of 5 star and who's a 1 out of 5 and why. And that's
Okay.
really important. Certain folks will say there are certain challenges around AI and you want to make sure you're not discriminating against applicants, but you do want to use the technology to help you win that fight and look at the best candidates first.
Sure. I mean, everybody's doing it too. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they've had AI write their resume too. So it's
Right.
and maybe apply as well. So it's that back and forth. But we can do all
Yeah.
that. We can do that very quickly. But then, in most of our service offerings, we can do a fully automated offering. That's good for a lot of folks. We can help out a recruiting team that way. But we do generally put a live human professional recruiter based in the US on that last mile of the hiring process. So we can move quickly and we've got that professional human interaction that can make some judgment calls and help facilitate and put some process discipline around things.
Yeah. I mean, I
So
imagine it's frustrating for the candidates as well as the companies because every candidate who applies is competing against what, a couple hundred to 1,000 resumes of people who may or may not be actually be interested in that position, but their resume was
yeah.
shifted through
Yep.
some
Yep.
service that they paid for to automatically apply for them,
Yeah. Yes.
right?
Yes. They're very frustrated. And they're also frustrated because companies don't get back to them or they don't get back to them in a timely fashion. And there's no excuse for that. If you're creating a poor candidate experience, I mean, look, we take that very seriously. 4.9 out of 5-star Google reviews for thousands of hires. If you're not treating human beings like they're valuable in the process, then you're destroying your employer brand in the marketplace. We've seen that,
Sure.
right? People are like, "Oh, my glass door isn't really true." Well, you could think that, but
Right.
maybe paying a little more in the marketplace for talent if you 1 out of 5 stars on Glassdoor.
Why do you think that is? Is it because everything is starting to just feel so automated and robotic? And how can a company potentially get back to hundreds of people who don't actually qualify for what they're looking for?
There's absolutely, it's a great question, and I don't fully know the answer to that. Part of it is definitely the overwhelming automation and everything, the impersonal nature of things. Part of it is folks get into a hiring process and they're not sure what they want or how to go about closing the deal. We see this a lot in the lower middle market and in even the middle market sometimes. I think I want one of these, but as I go through the process and start talking to people, I may be changing my opinion. And that's okay, but you got to communicate that openly and
Right.
honestly, folks.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
there's fear over litigation, you know? Am I going to say the wrong thing? Am I going to ask the wrong thing? But yeah, it's multifactorial, but I do think it starts to your point with overly automated and cold process.
Yeah. Do you guys use AI tools? So what you described to me was a lot of research.
Hmm.
Companies,
Yeah.
so are you using AI tools to source clients? or candidates?
We are.
Yeah.
We are also using AI tools to do some initial phone screens, particularly in off hours and in high volume.
Mm, mhm.
We're using some AI tools to do candidate outreach and engage with them in a human fashion. Sometimes it's as simple as a warm, personalized text message to let them know, like, hey, just got your offer letter. We're moving you to onboarding. Congrats. Here's the next thing to expect.
Through AI, doing that
Yep.
through AI. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there's a variety of tools we're using in there. None of them are perfect, but they get better and better every day. And they also create some opportunities to do some things at scale, some personalization at scale that's been missing before. And man, cold email or the impersonal automated email, I don't know that anyone likes that anymore.
Nope. Get 200 of those a day.
Yeah,
Click, click, click. Done.
yes.
Out. Yeah. Uh, that's all super interesting. So another question, just kind of to follow up on the client experience of everything. How have the trends changed for what their expectations are?
It's sad to say, but I talk to so many clients or so many candidates. We typically work for employers. We almost always work for employers. But in talking to a lot of the candidates, so many folks are so beaten down right now. 2025 was a tough year. Labor market was way up early in the pandemic, and now it's gone way down. There's so much uncertainty around AI. There's always the old tension between labor and capital. And in a lot of ways, capital is winning right now. So folks are just sometimes they're just grateful to get into the door for an opportunity.
Yeah, I bet.
You feel that and you feel like your heart goes out to some of these people. A lot of these people, they're looking for something that's fundamental to us as humans. They want to have a job, which is where we spend most of our waking hours, provides purpose, provides, really security for your family and for your lifestyle. And there's a lot of stress around that right now. And there's no easy fix to that in the current economy. And
Hmm.
there's just a lot of uncertainty, which is holding employers back. And sometimes it's holding candidates back too. Okay, you asked about trends earlier. I see a lot of folks they're scared to enter the job market and they're going to hold on to whatever they have because they're not sure they can get something better on the job market.
Interesting. Is that partially because how is their resume going to stand out amongst all the noise out there?
It's the resume, it's, you know, it's the element of comfort. The devil is better than the one you don't.
Sure.
And it's also there are a lot of people that are going through some tough patches, and there's a huge amount on social media. And folks will get out after they've been laid off and say, "Hey, I just spent 16 years with this company. I just got laid off with a crummy package on social media 5 minutes after it happens."
Mm,
And folks see that, and they see the folks with the green band up that says, open to work on LinkedIn, and they see that and they think, "Wow, like it looks tough out there."
hmm.
So,
Yeah.
we as humans, or at least I am, we like to pretend we're logical, but we're actually quite emotional. And seeing that creates a lot of fear. And then you hear all the uncertainty about AI taking jobs and, events in the world. And folks just think, wow, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So if we were to switch gears to something that, I mean, that's a big challenge, something that's working really well. What's working well for Hoops HR today in today's environment? How you engage with your clients or your candidates? Yeah. What's working well?
Yeah, no, appreciate the question. So the good answer is a lot of things are working well. But one of the things that I love is really starting to create long-term value for our customers in terms of we're not pure play recruiting. So we're helping customers start to figure things out across the entire HR lifecycle. And there's a lot of goodness to that, a lot of excitement to it. On our platform, you know, was walking a customer through our new onboarding offering last week. And he said, wow, this is really different. This is really better than anything I've seen. And he said, does this connect to my recruiting? I said, yeah, it absolutely does. It's going to auto populate with all the stuff coming over from your recruiting. And you can set up all these tasks. And I assume that was table stakes, like why
Yeah.
buy from what we're already, but
Yeah.
he was thrilled. And it's so delighting the customer with things like that where it's better than they expect.
Mm.
That's a lot of fun. And at the end of the day, I love the fact that we're helping people get jobs, and now we're going to help them get into their company, get productive, get promoted. We're doing a lot of strategic talent work right now. And I love this, and it creates incredible value for customers. And I'll give you a couple of concrete examples. We can sit down with a customer's leadership team and we can say, okay, let's use some assessments. Let's use some survey work. So let's do things like a personality assessment, some 360s. Let's look at the team and how it's performing. And let's help you take that team through some development that's going to improve the performance of the team, to build trust, to build psychological safety. And as we work through these iterations and we get to that next level and you're ready to hire, we're able to bring great candidates into a much more receptive environment. So it starts to take care of the whole ecosystem. You can do deep talents, working with folks in that to say, hey, what do we do in terms of identifying talent and bringing them in for the long term? So there's a manufacturing company we work with a couple of years back. We were able to identify a really promising young engineer who's very outgoing, incredible sales capability. She's moved over and been through leadership development, some other things, and is now a VP of regional sales and just killing it for the company.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of work, and those are the kind of relationships you love to see. Now we're hiring some folks to work for her. But those virtuous cycles of growth, that's awesome. And that's where you walk away. Yeah, we've had a huge impact, top line and bottom line, but also just good to see people grow and develop in the organization.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm sure that must feel so satisfying for you to see, what you're doing work.
Yeah. Well, more importantly, the clients see it and feel it. And they think, oh, okay, I made a good decision here and I want to stay with you to make more of those kind of decisions. So yeah.
Absolutely. So on the flip side of that, it's not all roses and sunshine. And we talked about AI and how that can be challenging. But what's another big challenge that you faced recently in the industry?
Yeah, I think the economic uncertainty of 2025 was a huge challenge in the industry. You literally you're working with clients and they would say, we have to go on a hiring freeze or we're on a budget freeze. And it's like, we really like you, but we're just not doing anything. It's like,
Is
okay,
that
yeah,
specific to different industries or across the
there's a
board?
couple of different industries. I think, yeah, again, multifactorial here. So you've got folks that, and mergers and acquisitions picked up in 2025. So you had some folks that decided to buy some things and needed to pull in budget. They'll come back, but it's hard to say, all right, we'll see you in 6 months. We have, some clients that were hurt through changes in the global economy, oil and gas, very hard, very hard. We all love that gas prices are low, but if you're in the extraction, refinery, and production business, that's not great for you.
Right.
So we see that in Texas, in Oklahoma. Some manufacturers got hurt pretty badly by the tariffs,
Yeah.
and that created a huge amount of uncertainty for them too. I mean, how much are my raw materials going to cost? I don't know. Well, that means I'm going to delay some other decisions.
Right. Now, as a business, how do you navigate around that, like transition? The income's not coming in and.
So we knew strategically going in last year, we needed to diversify, and we did that. So we still grew year over year, and that was a good thing. The challenge is, the ultimate challenge in business, right, is if your revenues aren't predictable, it's very difficult to manage expenses. And
Yeah.
for us, it's okay. As we pivoted to new things, as we diversify the revenue, there's a lot of trial and error, which that for the team, that can be mentally and emotionally taxing.
Sure.
We're rolling out new products, so need to train you up on this. Let's go pitch it. Let's see how it goes. So sometimes the pace of change accelerates in that market. But my takeaway in this is hoops, we can always create value for customers. And we have things like fractional HR, and we have the consulting advisory, and we can even do low cost recruiting for folks. So even in a down market, we should still be taking market share and growing.
Yeah.
That's that's important to focus on is, hey, the economy is not always going to be growing. So you have to learn to be successful and competitive in that.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think I don't think there are many industries that would look back on 2025 and say, wow, what a great year.
Okay.
Yeah. I count us fortunate, and I count, most of our clients fortunate that we finished well. We were able to maintain a lot of good relationships and position well for 26.
Awesome. So that kind of brings me to my next question and sets the stage up really well. What does the next 12 months look like for you, for success?
Yes. So I think the single biggest thing for us is to continue to add new customers, and also followed by preserving and growing those existing relationships. As we bring out these new services, it's really getting the word out, demonstrating to people that we're worth your trust, that we can really deliver on what we say, and we can create value for the long term. And I think that's, yeah, we are a software platform to some extent, but there's also a huge service component, and there's a long term trust relationship that we want. We don't want you to buy once and go away. We want to have that relationship where we're really demonstrating over the long term we're creating value. It takes time. So I think for 26, it's creating trust and expanding trust.
Such a great note to end on. Well, Mike, thanks so much for sharing your experience and perspective. This has been great. And thank you for everyone listening to the Growth Shift podcast. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thanks for having us.
My pleasure.